Okay, hi students. This video is to help you to do revision regarding the Form 1 Mathematics on Chapter 8. Chapter 8, the topic is lines and angles. So by here, we are going to do revision on 8.1, which is lines and angles. So look at the objective that we are going to do today. Firstly, determine and explain the congruency of the segments and angles. Second, recognize, compare, and explain the properties of angles on a straight line, reflex angles, and one whole turn angles. And lastly, describe the properties of adjacent angles, complementary angles, supplementary angles, and conjugate angles. Okay, so these are those angles that you had learned since Form 1. Right? So by here we move on the first objective. Let's go. The first one, determine and explain the congruency of the segments and angles. Students, in geometry, two figures or objects are congruent if they have the same shape and size. So remember, the main keyword is same, shape and size for the congruency that we mean. So now we'll have a look on some examples. Two line segments are congruent if they have the same length. Okay, so by here we have two line segments, which is AB and CD. Okay, we can conclude that line AB and line CD are congruent because they have the same length, which is 10 cm. And the second example, two angles are congruent if they have the same measure. So we have a look on angle G and S here. Angle G and S are congruent because they have the same measurement, which is 42 degrees. So students, this is the meaning of congruency. Means they should have the same shape and size. And now we have a look on some exercises so that it will enhance your skill on this objective. Okay, we look on the first question. Which of the following are congruent? Okay, so we have three pair of diagram here. The first diagram show two squares, and these two squares is very obvious. They have the same shape and also size. So by here we can conclude that the squares are congruent. And the second show us a pair of arrows. These arrows, they're having the same shape, but unfortunately they are different in size. Okay, so by here we can conclude that they are non-congruent because of the different size. And the third pair, we have hexagons which with the same shape and size. By here, once again, we conclude them as congruent. Okay, now we look on the second question. Based on the given diagram, are AB and CD congruent? So we have a check on it. Okay, AB, we will have 1, 2, 3 units. Whereas CD, we have 1, 2, 3, also 3 units. So by here, we can conclude that A and B are congruent. Yes, they are congruent because of the same length. Okay, and now we move on the second part for this question, which is, are AB and BC congruent? So we have a look on AB. AB, as just now, 3 units, 1, 2, 3. And BC, only 1 unit. Okay, so when we compare, for sure they are in different length. So when they are different length, we say they are not congruent. Okay, so hopefully by here you're able to understand the meaning of congruency of the segments and angles, which we mean same shape and size. Now we move on the second objective for today. Recognize, compare, and explain the properties of angles on a straight line, reflex angles, and one whole turn. So by here we are going to revise type of angles that we had learned previously. So the first one is acute angle. This angle is less than 90 degree. For example, it can be 45 degree, 68 degree, 21 degree, and so on, as long as this angle is less than 90 degree. And the second one will be right angle. Right angle is exactly equal to 90 degree. And the third one, obtuse angle. Obtuse angle are those angle which is between 90 degree and 180 degree. And the next one, straight line angle, which exactly equal to 180 degree. And the next one, reflex angle, which is between 180 degree and 360 degree. And finally, we have full angle, and we also can name it as angle of whole turn, which is exactly equal to 360 degree. So by here, we had revised 6 type of angles. Alright, so now we move on an exercise. Determine the following angles. So we have been given 6 diagrams with 6 different angles. So we are going to group them to these 6 type of angle that we had just revised just now. Alright, the first one, acute angle. Students still remember, acute angle means those angle which is less than 90 degree. So where is it? Where is the acute angle? Yes, it's J. Okay, as we look on angle J, it haven't reached to 90 degree, which is less than 90 degree. Okay, so acute angle is J. Now, let's find out where is the right angle. Where is the right angle? Yes, B is the right angle. And the third one, obtuse angle. Obtuse angle means those angle which is between 90 degree and 180 degree. It means this angle can't form a straight line yet because it haven't reached to 180. So where is it? Yes, it is S. And the next one, straight line angle, exactly 180, which is angle U. And the second last, reflex angle, which is in between 180 degree and 360 degree. Can you have it? Yes, it is W. And the last one, full angle, which we also name as a whole turn angles, exactly 360 degree. So we have here angle R. Alright, students, can you get all the answer correctly? If yes, let's move on for the last objective. Describe the properties of adjacent angles, complementary angles, supplementary angles, and conjugate angles. So we look at the first one. What we mean by adjacent angle? Adjacent angles means two angles immediately next to each other. Next to each other means what, students? Just beside, neighboring, okay? Just left and right beside. Okay, so we have a look on this diagram. We have angle A, B, C, D, E, and F. So based on these given 6 angles, can you get all the pairing of the adjacent angles? We start with the first pair. We have angle A and B, which are just next to each other. So how to continue the next pairing? We have B and C, just beside each other, next to each other. And the next pairing, can you get it? Yes, C and D. And the next one, D and E. Alright, for sure you're also able to get the last pair, which is E and F. So all these 6 pair we name as adjacent angles, which are beside or we say next to each other. Okay, based on these adjacent angles, we can form another 3 type of angle, which is complementary angles, supplementary angles, and also conjugate angles. So how can we differentiate between three of these angles? So now we look on complementary angles. Complementary angles, okay, let's say we have angle A and angle B. So these two angles, when we add up, we get the total 90 degree. Once we get the sum, which is 90 degree, so this pair of adjacent angle, we can group them as complementary angle, because when we add up both angle, we get 90 degree. Okay, so class, for me, I always do like this. C, I will write my C as this. So by here, I can form 90 degree, means it always remind me that any two adjacent number, when we add up, we're able to get 90 degree, means complementary angles. Okay, and now we look on the next one, supplementary angles. So supplementary angles, let's say we have angle A 140 degree and angle B, which is 40 degree. By here, we add up both of the angle, we get 180 degrees. Hence, we can conclude that these two angles are supplementary angles. Okay, so class, complementary, the sum is 90 degree. Supplementary, the sum is 180 degree. And the last one, for sure you know what is going on, right? So we have angle A, which is 220 degree, and angle B, which is 140 degree. So when we add both of them, we get 360 degree. So by here, we can group this adjacent angle as conjugate angle, as their total is 360 degree. Alright, so class, complementary, supplementary, and conjugate angles, they are types of adjacent angles. Alright, just depend on the summation of these two angles. If we get 90 degree, means complementary. If we get 180, means supplementary. If we get 360, means conjugate angles, or we name as explementary angles. Okay, by here we're going to the last practice for this objective. Okay, we have the question. Determine the following angles. So class, we have been given three diagrams. So how can we determine them? So we look at the first pair. The first pair, we have 67 and 23. So we try to add them up. Okay, we try to add them up. What happened? We try to add them up, we get 90 degree. So class, 90 degree is complementary angle. Okay, and the second one, we have 310 add up with 50 degree. So we get 360 degree, means we get a whole turn. It will go to conjugate angle. And the last diagram, we have 128 degree with 52 degree, and we're able to get 180 degree. So if we get 180 degree means this is supplementary angle. So class, hopefully this video able to help you to revise on all these three objectives that we have went through. Okay, thank you class, thank you students.